Hej! Har de höger- eller vänstertrafik i Australien? Rätt svar, de har vänstertrafik. Eftersom programmet som vi nu ska sända är helt på engelska så ska jag gå igenom och förklara några ord och uttryck som förekommer i programmet. Det här är en modell av Port Arthur. Port Arthur var under delar av 1800-talet a penal settlement, en fångkoloni på Tasmanien. Idag finns det bara ruiner kvar av byggnaderna på denna historic site, historiska plats. Port Arthur var ett fängelse för second offenders, återfallsförbrytare. Hobart på Tasmanien är Australiens näst äldsta state capital, delstats huvudstad. Medlemmar i The Wilderness Society, en naturskyddsförening, delar ut leaflets, flygblad, och demonstrerar mot att skogsbolagen skövlar de tasmanska regnskogarna och gör de vilda djuren hemlösa. Tasmanska pungjävulen, the Tasman Devil, är ett av de utrotningshotade djuren och den finns bara på Tasmanien. Till och med under årets varmaste dag är det cool and moist, svalt och fuktigt i regnskogen. Här har skogen blivit logged, avverkad, och nu återstår bara gräs och scrub, buskskog. Bushwalking. Att fotvandra i den orörda tasmanska naturen, det är ett omtyckt nöje, framförallt under sommarmånaderna, det vill säga december, januari och februari, för då har de flesta sin holiday, semester. Det här är ett typiskt mountain scenery, bergslandskap på Tasmanien. En myr med buttongrass, tasmanskt starrgräs, omgiven av eukalyptusträd och med mountains, berg i bakgrunden. På den här bilden ser vi Queenstown i bakgrunden. Queenstown är en gruvstad på den tasmanska västkusten. Här har acid rain, surt regn, tagit död på all vegetation, växtlighet. När en gruva inte längre är lönsam så läggs den ner och befolkningen flyttar. Då förvandlas platsen snabbt till en ghost town, en spökstad. Med den här bilden av The Tasman Bridge, Tasmanska bron i Hobart, går vi över till programmet. Colin Dell, Ranger at Port Arthur. What does Ranger mean?
Rangers are people who look after the historic site where we work. And our responsibilities are to protect the historic site, also to interpret the historic site to the people who visit here.
And what is Port Arthur?
Port Arthur is a penal settlement. It was the home of many prisoners, many British and Irish prisoners, and they were sent out from Britain for, in a lot of cases, very, very small offences.
When was that?
It started in 1830 as far as Port Arthur is concerned, and it only had a 47-year history and finished in 1877.
How many prisoners have been here at Port Arthur?
Around about 12,000 in the 47-year history.
Were they both men and women?
No, Port Arthur was just a male adult prison, no women prisoners, but we did have children prisoners, boy children, and they were from the age of 7 till about 14, and they lived on a piece of land called Point Pure.
And what crimes had they committed to be sent here?
The boys, very, very small crimes, such as pickpocket and of stealing small things, such as a loaf of bread.
How long did the trip take to get here from Britain?
If the weather was fair, it would be 6 months, and if it was bad weather, it could be anything up to 9 months.
Port Arthur is said to have been a very, very strict prison. Why was that?
It once again comes back to the fact that the prisoners were second offenders, and each prisoner was strictly made to accept orders, and they were also chained from ankle to make sure that they had no chance or very little chance of escape.
What's your name?
Jeremy Carlson.
And what's yours?
Shannon Wright.
Jeremy, what did you know about Port Arthur before you came here?
Well, mostly that it was sort of, I thought before I came that it was a bad place for people that had sort of been bad people in England before they came to Port Arthur, and they were mostly real bad people.
And what do you think of Port Arthur now?
Yeah, I think it's a really good place, and I've changed my mind, and it's not really the place that I thought it was before.
What do you do here?
We're doing a project for school, and we've got to leave sort of 50 papers or something that we've got to answer questions for.
Colin, where are we standing now?
On the Isle of the Dead, in the middle of the bay at Port Arthur.
Why is it called the Isle of the Dead?
Because this was the cemetery or the burial ground for all the prisoners and also for the civil and military people.
How many people are buried on the island?
In the area we're standing now is the convict area, and there were 1,760 convicts buried here. They were buried sometimes 6 or 7 to a grave. When a convict died, they would wrap them in sailcloth, and then they would put them in the hole with some lime on top, and then they would add one after the other until there were sometimes 6, sometimes 7 in each grave.
There is a difference between the two sites here. One side there are no stones, and still you say there are people buried there. Why is that?
The convicts were buried in unmarked graves. In the comparison was that the military had a headstone and a normal grave as we would expect today.
So a lot of Australians and Tasmanians have a British origin.
Very much so, very much so.
Have you got an origin, a British origin?
Yes, I have. I descend from a military sergeant at arms, and he arrived with Colonel Patterson at Georgetown in the northern part of Tasmania.
So you have no convicts in your family then?
Not in my family, but my wife is the descendant of a convict.
These are wood chips. Would you like to take them and read about what's happening in our forests?
Certainly.
What are you giving people passing by?
I'm handing out here bags of wood chips. They're in recycled paper bags. They're chips. When the trees are clear felled, they're taken to the pulp mills and they're shredded up into chips.
Could you show it to the camera as well, please? Why would you hand out the chips then?
Because when the trees are felled, and some of these trees are in excess of 200 years old, they're taken to the pulp mills and reduced to chips like this. Huge trees are reduced to this. And why we're handing these out today is because we want to bring to people's attention in Hobart what's happening in our forests, what's happening to the trees, and what's happening to the native animals who live in those forests and who need mature trees to live in.
What is happening then to these trees and to the animals?
Well, the trees are being clear felled to be turned into chips for paper pulp. The animals are made homeless by the diversity of the forest being reduced. The animals need trees with hollows. They nest in hollows which only occur in mature trees that are over 150 years old.
Excuse me, what are you representing?
Well, I'm representing all the animals in the waterways that are being destroyed by forestry operations.
Well, I look like a crow, but I'm representing the animals which live in the tall trees in the forest. With wood chipping operations, they're only allowing the forest to grow back for 80 years. So the old trees will not be replaced. And it's only the old trees that have hollows where parrots and galahs can make nests, where crows can be high away from their enemies, where birds of prey can have safe nests. And many of these birds, which are important for our ecosystems, will not be able to live in the new plantations which are replacing our old forests.
Excuse me, what animal are you?
I'm commonly known as the Tasmanian devil.
What is the Tasmanian devil?
It's a animal that's here found only in Australia. It's this small cat-like animal that is becoming very, very scarce as time goes on.
Do you think this will help at all?
We believe so. We believe that the people of Tasmania want to keep their natural native forests, that we can have sensible forestry operations in the areas that are restricted for forestry operations, but we must retain large enough areas of our natural forests.
How many people work in this office?
Usually we have anything from 10 to 15 working here, but more often than not they're away lobbying politicians on the mainland, so it's usually less.
And what is your main job here?
My main job is production of maps. I help produce the newsletter as well, which goes out once a month, and occasionally I'll design a small poster and various other jobs.
And sometimes you stage protests in the streets.
Oh, yes, yeah. I'm a bit of a radical. I like to go out and do something like that once in a while. It helps.
What do you do then when you go out in the streets?
Well, like yesterday, we dressed up as animals and handed out wood chips. That's the first action that I've taken part in.
How long have you worked with the Wilderness Society?
Oh, for about 7 to 8 months.
Who is going to use these maps?
These maps will be used by activists in Sydney, Melbourne and here in Tasmania when they talk to people about the commercial forest issue. They will use this to show what is happening to the forests.
So a lot of artwork and things like that are being made here in Hobart.
Yes, that's right. Hobart is the national office of the Wilderness Society, and as such we do most of the work down here.
David Heatley, what are your campaigns at the moment?
Our main campaign is about the woodchip industry in Tasmania. We're trying to make sure that the woodchip industry doesn't go in and log forests in areas that we believe are so beautiful and so important that they should be in national parks.
What is woodchip industry?
The woodchip industry is an industry which is based around logging forests.
And logging forests.
Or cutting down forests and exporting those forests as very small pieces of wood to Japan and Korea, where they're made into paper.
What's happened here?
This used to be a mixed rainforest. It's been logged and cleared, and the wood has been taken to a paper mill by the Derwent River.
I represent the pygmy possum, which is a very, very small animal that lives in hollows in old trees. The time that it takes for my homes to develop is 150 years, and our trees are being cut down every 80 years, so each year the area in which I can live gets smaller and smaller and smaller.
And do you think you'll get enough space to live on?
No, I don't think so, because I don't think I'll be happy to live in the leftovers from the woodchip operations.
Australia is very rich in minerals. This mine is one of the richest copper mines in the world. It is situated in Queenstown on the west coast of Tasmania. These hills were once covered in rainforest. 100 years ago, minerals were discovered here and a mine established. The trees were cut down to fuel a smelter at the mine, and the pollution from the smelter caused acid rain. The acid rain killed all the vegetation, and the soils eroded away because of the high rainfall. Now, nothing can grow.
How old was the rainforest when they started building the mine here?
It had been here for thousands of years, and many of the trees would have been 1,000 or 2,000 years old.
There was no wilderness society when they started mining here?
No, not 100 years ago.
How come there are so many ghost towns in Australia?
Ghost towns are usually mining towns. Once minerals are discovered, a town is set up to mine the minerals, and once those minerals run out, then people will move away until eventually there is no one left and only buildings standing.
What's typical of a rainforest?
A rainforest is covered by a thick mat of treetops called a canopy, and that keeps the moist air in and it means even on the hottest day that a rainforest will be cool and be moist.
How much rain do you get in this forest a year?
Maybe 2 or 3 metres, and in some places in Tasmania up to 4 metres a year.
What are the trees that grow here?
The main tree is the myrtle tree. The other trees are the sassafras, the leatherwood, and king billy pines that can grow to 1,000, 1,500, even 2,000 years old.
Could you please show me on the map where these areas are?
The areas that we're concerned about are the forests and wilderness in the southwest and central highlands of Tasmania, the rainforests in the northwest of Tasmania and the northeast, and the forests in the Douglas River on the east coast of Tasmania.
Grant, is bushwalking popular in Tasmania?
It is. It's popular in Australia in general, and Tasmania is one of the places a lot of people in Australia come to go bushwalking.
When do you go bushwalking?
You can go bushwalking at all times of the year. Like in winter, the highland areas will have snow on them, so it's a different experience to in summer. But it's probably more popular in summer because more people have their holidays in summer.
Why do you go bushwalking?
To see this sort of country, to experience nature, just to get away from the civilization of which I'm a part.
And where do you go bushwalking?
In Tasmania, we're very fortunate to have a large number of natural areas dotted all around the state, national parks and other areas. So you can go bushwalking in any part of the state, to nice warm coastal areas, to cold mountain tops, rivers, all sorts of places. We're very lucky here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Here's your little lot today.
Oh, thank you very much.
Leave you to it.
Thank you.
What is your job with the Wilderness Society?
I'm the secretary of the Wilderness Society, which means that I'll end up with a lot of these letters to actually deal with later on. The money ones will be receipted and go to our accountant, but all of the inquiries or a lot of the ones about campaigns I'll have to deal with at some stage.
Do you get angry letters as well?
Not often. Most people who are angry with the sorts of things that we do don't bother to write.
What do people think of when they hear the Wilderness Society, do you think?
Well, some people, the people who might write angry letters if they could be bothered, don't like us. They think that we're taking away their jobs or doing things that aren't in the best interests of them or of the state or the country. But a lot of people, certainly judging from the number of letters of support we get from time to time, think that we're doing a good job, that an organisation like this needs to exist, and that the things that we stand for are worth fighting for.
This is typical mountain scenery in Tasmania. A swampy button grass plain surrounded by eucalypt trees with the mountains in the background. This mountain is Mount Olympus.
Is this a native bird?
Yes, the black swans are found only in Australia. Many places in Tasmania look like England. The early settlers tried to make it look like their home. The yellow bushes on the hills are gorse bushes from England. Battery Point is a small suburb, one of the first suburbs of Hobart, that has been built with old Georgian architecture, and today it's very popular for people living in a city that has a lot of very small but very quaint cottages of the 1830s, 1840s era.
Are there many bushfires here in Tasmania?
There are bushfires in Tasmania every summer between November and March. Here the bushfire has not been so bad. The outside of the trees are burnt, but the trees are still alive. Campaigning involves many things. It involves trying to educate the public and the people who are concerned out in the community of the values, of the beauty of the areas that we're concerned about. It involves countering the arguments put forward by the industry and by the government on their behalf, and it involves trying to convince governments and politicians that there is broad-based community support for us and that those people will vote, and ultimately that if they want to stay in power they have to take proper care of the environment.
Till serien finns det ett studiehäfte med bilder i fyrfärg, texter, ordförklaringar och faktauppgifter till varje program. Och häftet kan köpas via bokhandeln eller direkt ifrån Utbildningsradion, kundtjänst 115 80 i Stockholm. Man kan också under kontorstid ringa in sin beställning på telefon 08 784 4240. Och det var allt från Utbildningsradions dagsändningar för idag. Imorgon har vi inga dagsändningar, men på torsdag är vi här igen som vanligt. På återseende.